What's going on, everyone? It has been a while, but again, Back Your Play is back in the saddle. Rich Quinones here, joined with our good friend Lloyd Vance, our NFL insider. And oh my goodness, I mean, this should have been done in September, October. Now we're in November, Turkey Day right around the corner, but we're excited to be back up and running. We'll post everything via the pod, also on Twitter and the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. Lloyd, been a long time, my friend. How you been?
Oh, I'm doing great, Q. It was a very lengthy time away, and I had high school football games I was at, and I've just been keeping track of the whole NFL. It's been a crazy season, but glad to be back with you in the audience.
No, I appreciate it, pal. And let's just dive right into it. So we're pretty much near the point of the season where you start to separate the pretenders from the contenders. Let's start in our backyard along the East Coast 95, NFC East. I mean, we saw how well the Eagles have been playing this season. They stubbed their toe against Washington, get the win against the Colts. Dallas goes and they land base Captain Kurt and Minnesota. The Giants have a bad loss at home, mind you, to Detroit. And then the Washington Commanders don't look now. They won a couple in a row. Listen, when it's all said and done, I still believe that it's the Philadelphia Eagles. And if it plays to form, I think Dallas will have their say in this division, but kind of handicap the NFC East right now for us.
Yeah, Q, it's crazy because you and I talked right before the season. We had our season-long predictions. And we're saying, oh, the NFC East is the NFC least again. And can these teams step forward? And it's been a great season so far for this division. So when you look at it, all of them have winning records. The Commanders in the basement at 6-5 right now. And they're trying to step forward and going with Heineke, and he's a guy that's kind of given them a spark the last couple of weeks. They've won 2 straight games, and they're in the mix. I'd probably go with the Giants next in that next slot. And, the Giants, we kind of saw their Achilles heel this week. Situation where Saquon Barkley was only averaging less than 3 yards a carry. And Daniel Jones, you and I have talked about it over and over again. Is he really a primetime player? At this point in his career, I'd probably say no, but they're in the mix as well as 7-3, and they're going to keep going forward. They have their opportunities. They're going to play the Eagles twice in these last couple of games down the stretch, particularly week 17. That's going to be a huge spot for you. And then you talk about the Dallas Cowboys. They're a team that are very dangerous. Yes, the Eagles beat them all the way back at the beginning of the season with Cooper Rush on a Sunday night. But the way their offensive line is playing and Pollard's playing, at 7-3, Micah Parsons on defense, this is a very dangerous team. And you talk about the Eagles, 9-1, as Parcells always says, your record says who you are. And the Eagles, it was an ugly win. Let's not forget that was a 38-year-old quarterback to be with Indy, and it took everything down the stretch to fall their way and get it done. Brandon Graham gets a big sack at the end. That was huge in that game. But, Jalen Hurts is playing very well. Some people are saying MVP level. I'd have to put him under Mahomes and Allen. But the Eagles are right there at 9-1. And over these next couple of weeks, we're really going to see who they are starting this Sunday night against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and that Eagles game, I mean, think about it. There's not a missed field goal in that game. Who knows what happens by the Colts? And you can go back a couple weeks ago to the game against Arizona when Murray inexplicably slid a yard short of that first down marker. But the Eagles, to their credit, they've done what they had to do to try to run away with this. Couple points on the Giants with all these injuries. It's Monday morning quarterback, and now when we learn that Adoree Jackson's going to be out, Wan'Dale Robinson, the promising rookie after that 100-yard performance, tears up his knee, his ACL, I should say. So he's going to be out. This is a really depleted team catching the Cowboys, who are coming off a really big win. I think this is a tough spot for the Giants on the road. Big D, Thanksgiving, 425, Fox window, national audience. To me, this is a game where you got to run Saquon, you got to run Breida. And listen, I know they don't have a ton of weapons right now on the side. Slayton and Golladay, okay, so be it. But I think you're going to learn a little bit about Daniel Jones. And if you kind of look at what he's been able to do this year, not turning the ball over leading up to that game against Detroit when he had 2, Hutchinson made the nice pick on one of them. I think he's played well this year. I just think this is a situation where the Giants are just void of talent, so to speak. And Galladay's given them nothing. They traded away Tony, who looks like he's going to be banged up in Kansas City. I don't know. My gut tells me I think the Giants are going to make a better showing this Thursday on Thanksgiving against the Dallas Cowboys. But what scares me the most is Dallas is getting to the quarterback. We saw what they did against Minnesota, sacking Cousins 7 times. And then you talk about that secondary. You don't really have to worry about the Giants kind of beating you over the top. So look, that 8, 9 point, it'll probably come back down a little bit to 8 or so. I think that's line is exactly where it needs to be in this game, to be quite honest. I'll pull it up real quick for you. Right now, it's sitting at 9. I think it'll close around 8.5, 8. But that's a really tough spot for the Giants. Both squads coming in at 7-3.
Yeah, Q. It's NFC East game, so it's going to be a competitive game. I like the Giants taking that 9 points, but if you're talking about the money line, straight up type of game, you have to talk Dallas and all the intangibles that they have right now, clicking on all cylinders. Let's not forget CeeDee Lamb is a big play waiting to happen, and you talk about that depleted defense for the Giants. Yes, if Williams can get some heat, that will help them and cause some turnovers, but you know, behind them, their secondary is kind of lacking and they can allow
Yeah.
the big play over the top. So, watch for CeeDee Lamb, watch for Pollard on a wheel route out of the backfield, and Ezekiel Elliott and the short yardage situation. So, when I look at this game, it could be a tough assignment. Now, let's not forget Dallas has lost, I think, the last 3 Thanksgivings. So, they're going to have to step this up, and this is their chance to kind of keep pace with the Eagles. They want to set everything up for that big game near the end of the season where they play them in week 16, I believe it is, in Dallas. So, I think that the Cowboys will win this one straight up. But definitely, if you're going to play this one, take the points because it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I don't think the Giants are going to get blown out. I have a feeling they're going to use Jones's legs and get Saquon into the mix. Maybe there's a special teams play here and there. You mentioned the Bills and Josh Allen. I mean, look, they get through Cleveland. You had the snow. You play in Detroit. They were able to rebound from that horrible loss against Minnesota. Everyone's starting to say, all right, what's wrong with Buffalo? What's wrong with Buffalo? Now they take on a Lions squad at home, getting 9.5, 10 for that first game of the trifecta on Thursday, Thanksgiving. And the Lions have played tougher. They played better. We saw what they did against the Giants, just basically, body bagging the Giants, right? Knocking out 5 guys, getting to Daniel Jones, getting some turnovers, running the football. 9.5. It's a little too rich for my blood. I actually like the Lions at home to cover the number here against Buffalo.
Yeah, Q, and I would tend to agree with you there, and also possibly look at the over because the Detroit is very underestimated, as you're saying. You got Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn, who's the defensive coordinator there, really picking things up with Aiden Hutchinson, the young defensive end coming in, a high draft pick out of Michigan. He's really getting after people in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. And when you look at Deion Dawkins, who's the tackle for the Bills, he has some problems in protection. So, Josh Allen's been taking a lot of hits, and we've talked about this ever since they started the season. Josh Allen is their leading rusher for this team. So you got to set something up to kind of tenderize them and give them a chance. But I'd say if you're looking straight up at this game, the Bills should win it, but with Poyer possibly making a play on the back end for them. And let's not forget, golf is still golf, and he's prone to make mistakes in big spots. So I think the Bills will win this game straight up. But once again, I'd probably say if you're betting, take the points and take the Lions because the Lions have won 3 straight games. And as you're saying, they're more dangerous than people think.
Yeah, listen, they're playing for their head coach. They're playing better. They've got a young defense and they can score. The problem is their run defense has been an issue, which the Giants were not able to expose in that game. I mean, they stacked the box. They did a hell of a job in that regard. Did Detroit? The number's a little too rich for my blood, to be quite honest with you. So I actually like the Lions at home, an upstart Lion squad with the 9.5, 10. Then you've got the Pats against the Vikings. Minnesota's coming off a humbling loss to the Dallas Cowboys in a game they were not competitive. They were down 20-3 going into the locker room, lose it 40-3. They got waxed. Cousins got sacked 7 times in that one. They're laying 3.5, which I would say is the courtesy. Actually, I'm seeing some books have it as low as 2.5. I would grab that in a game against the Pats. I mean, the Patriots, right? Think about this, Lloyd. You have the Patriots coming off a miraculous win with the punt return for the touchdown late against the Jets, or arch rival. Prior to that, you had Minnesota coming off that miraculous win on the road against Buffalo. All right, there's your letdown. Do we put the Pats in the same category as this could be a letdown spot for New England, or You rarely see that with the hoodie. Uh, I don't know. I mean, to me, you might look at this game as almost like a 50-50, but if you back me in the corner right now, I'd say Minnesota laying the 2.5 at home after they got humbled by Dallas. They assert themselves. They let it loose. They get Cook and Jefferson and the gang involved, and they win it at home.
Yeah, Q, this one I've been back and forth on, as you say, very tight line. And you're looking at it, and it's Kirk Cousins in a primetime spot. I think he's
Right.
like 3-10 in primetime games, and 8-2. But is he ready to take that step up? And you talk about Matthew Judon in that defense for the Patriots. They're getting after people. He's one of the leading sack guys in the NFL, and they're making big plays behind him off that pressure. And Belichick's just finding a way to win games. Now,
Yeah.
what scares you though is, other than Stevenson in the backfield, what do the Patriots really have in terms of offensive firepower?
Not
Not
much.
a lot.
No.
So, and you made a very good point when you talk about Jefferson being healthy. He was kind of bottled up last week, and I think he's really ready to go off. And the Patriots, do they have the guy that can cover man to man? One of their starting corners is Jalen Mills, who we know from his Eagles days, the guy who can get beat over the top. So I think Jefferson does make some big plays, and I think that the Vikings will win that one and cover.
Wednesday edition of BYP Back Your Play. Rich Quinones here. Lloyd Vance joining us at Lloyd Vance, NFL writer, researcher, historian, PFWA award winner as well, former ESPN NFL Network contributor. Give him a follow on Twitter. Myself, Rich Q on Q. As always, the football, the betting, our sponsorships from our good friends over at Spooky Express. So if you check them out right now, you'll get all the NFL games. You'll get all the promos. If you subscribe to the 27 and Q pod with myself and Brandon Jacobs right now, you get that $20 free bet and you get the t-shirt as well. All right. So if you kind of keep going through these games that kind of stand out with me, Cincinnati and the Titans. Cincinnati is a road favorite, laying 1.5 points. Tennessee, look, you can just see that their offense is much more in sync with Tannehill over Willis, but they're running the ball well with Derrick Henry. They're starting to figure things out. I think this is kind of your last gasp if you're a Cincinnati squad, the defending AFC champs. I like Tennessee at home, essentially getting 1.5 points.
Yeah, Q, this is a fun one to watch. And I always say beware of the home dog. And Tennessee is very underrated. Obviously, Tannehill, a lot of people think he's not a quarterback that's a frontline kind of guy. But if he's not turning the ball over, not making mistakes, he's a guy that can game management. And then you talk about Derrick Henry coming behind him. He ran for, I think, 28 times in the last game for like 80-some yards, but he also is throwing the ball to get him out of the Wildcat. And he's a guy to do a variety of things. So I think they're going to try to get the attacking defense of the Bengals, particularly Sam Hubbard, their defensive end, who's a guy that can get sucked in trying to get pressure on a quarterback and run right past him. So, Tennessee's got that big offensive line, and they got to get to Joe Burrow. Without Jamar Chase, who I don't think is going to play in this game because of a hip injury, I think that's just going to affect Cincinnati. And Tennessee is one of those teams. They just keep stacking those W's, and they're getting ready for the playoffs because they're going to win that division.
Yeah, no doubt. Tannehill, 22 of 27. Talk about efficient, 333, a couple touchdowns in that 10-point win against Green Bay. Henry, you also pointed and highlighted out the running back, 28 carries for 87 yards. But look, you save him, you use him judiciously because at the end of the day, you want him to be running the ball hard in the fourth quarter come January, come playoff time. But no, I like Tennessee in this spot as well. You have the Bears and the Jets, and it's interesting because the Jets are laying 4.5. We don't think it's going to be Fields. It might be Simeon, but if you're a Jets fan, you look at that debacle that was that loss against New England, and Zach Wilson passes for only 77 yards. But I want to get into Zach for a second. Comes out afterwards and was pressed if he felt, they were asking the reporters, the New York media, if you felt that you let the offense down. I mean, here's a guy that hasn't played particularly well, looks like a bust, sitting up there chewing his gum, looking like a little punk, entitled kid, right? And no, I don't think I let anyone down. And the head coach realizes that, sees it, and it's conveyed to him, you got to pull this kid to the side. I would be shocked if they actually don't start him against Chicago. And the only reason I'm saying that is because Fields is probably going to be out. This is your get right game. If Fields was healthy and maybe he was going to be under center, then I can see maybe you go to Mike White. Maybe this is the game they're going to give him a short rope in Zach Wilson. But he just has not played up to snuff. And it's unfortunate because if you look at the Jets as a whole, Lloyd, defensively, they have probably the top defense in the NFL. It's a Super Bowl caliber type of defense. Their offense hasn't been helping them out.
Yeah, Q, and I know you can't see my face, but I'm smiling because this. You're right. Uh, Wilson's got to do a better job. He's
Yeah.
playing in New York City, and they're going to be on his back, and he's not playing at BYU anymore in Utah, and he's got to step forward. He's a guy that he's got pieces around him. This rookie class that the Jets have put together, Joe Douglas did a great job rebuilding this team, and they're right in the mix because let's remember there's 7 spots that are going to be into the playoffs. So this is their game, as you're saying. It's not time to put Mike White out there. They got to win this game if they're playing Simeon, which they think he is, because that shoulder injury is pretty bad for Justin Fields, which is unfortunately the Bears have, put up some big numbers, but they haven't been winning games. So I think that the Jets come out there and they put up a big number against a Bears team that's depleted. Their defense, they've gotten rid of a lot of guys through trades and cutting people.
Would you have, against New England, knowing that Wilson was struggling, I would have went to White. I would have sat the kid. I think sometimes you got to save the player from himself, but I also understand there's this old school mentality and thought process where you have to throw him out there because we want to see, quote, what he has. So it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Look, they're laying 4.5. They're going to be at home. If he goes 2 or 3 series and they go 3 and out, this is a game they have to win to keep pace with Buffalo, Miami, and New England in the AFC. So I kind of think it's all hands on deck. I'll be interested to see when they officially announce the starter, but I don't know, man. If Fields was healthy and the Bears were a better team, who knows? Maybe they go to Mike White.
Yeah, and that was a situation. Maybe they should have went to the bullpen against the Patriots. Very winnable game, 3-3 for the majority of that game, and maybe Mike White could give him a spark. Maybe they should have did some wildcat plays, and you have Garrett Wilson and the rest of these guys on that offense. They have some explosiveness. So, Wilson, as you're saying, they invested so much in him, the draft picks, and they give him the contract, and it's time for him to step forward and be that frontline guy. So I think they definitely want to get right, and they'll cover that number.
Let me keep going down some of these games that are kind of standing out. It doesn't look like Murray's going to go with the Cardinals. We saw the Chargers couldn't get over the hump against Kansas City. Raiders and the Seahawks. I mean, the Seahawks, hey, if you talk about a comeback player of the year, maybe you talk a little bit more about Geno Smith. It could be Saquon. The Rams, how about this? Has there been a team in recent memory that has just quietly just had a dismal season coming off winning a Super Bowl like the Rams? They're 3-7. They've had injuries. Stafford looks like his arm's about to fall off. They just cut one of their running backs. Cup is hurt. I mean, here's a team that was leaking oil, but still got through the playoffs, won the Super Bowl, and now they're 3-7, and they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be able to defend their crown. I mean, that's just a disaster out there with the Rams right now.
Yeah, Q, it's crazy how this happens. And the only team I can kind of equate it to is the Philadelphia Eagles team that I covered. In 2004, they go into the Super Bowl, and they had the magic season. But the next year in 2005, everything blew apart. Donovan McNabb gets the sports hernia. Terrell Owens has his mess, and they have to cut him. And it was just one thing after another. I think they finished 5-11 that season. Everybody fighting, and
but they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. That's the thing. The Rams are coming off a Super Bowl win.
Yeah, which is crazy. And they're like, oh, let's bring the band back together. If you remember, I think they only one guy they didn't re-sign and wasn't coming back from it. Both sides, offense and defense, and it was Whitworth who retired. So, it's a situation where they thought they had everybody in place, and injuries can derail a team quickly. And Matthew Stafford just is not right at this time. That concussion, I think maybe they should shut him down, and we'll see from there. And it's a situation where, unfortunately, they're the hunted now, and everybody in that division's coming after them. And you look at Seattle, and the team I think you really should be mindful of is the Niners. I think the Niners probably going to end up winning that division, also at 6-4, and they've already beat Seattle. So, tough season for the Rams, and they paid Aaron Donald and all these guys, but I think a lot's going to change in the offseason. And the bad thing is, Q, they mortgaged their future by trading a lot of picks over the years.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they got what they wanted, which was a Super Bowl title, but at what price, right? At what cost? You mentioned the 49ers, and they just laid it to Arizona last night. I mean, Arizona, you're talking about a quarterback you invested a substantial amount of money in. He's been banged up. You go to McCoy, couldn't get the job done. That coach should be on the hot seat. We'll get to that in a moment. But you look at the 49ers laying 9 at home against a Saints squad. Whether it's going to be crab legs or the water pistol, I don't care. The Saints are just a mess. But how about the 49ers when that offense is clicking and when that defense is clicking? I mean, Garoppolo looked like a Hall of Fame quarterback last night.
He does, and now he's got Christian McCaffrey back there, Ayuk and Debo Samuel's making plays, and they're just Shanahan's a mad scientist, so he's just dialing all kinds of things up offensively, and I love their defense. I mean, their defense getting after people
No doubt.
with Fred Warner, D'Amico Ryan's their defense coordinator, done a great job. Bosa, a guy who can get after quarterback on any play, so this is a very dangerous team, and New Orleans, yeah, it's probably going to be Andy Dalton in this game, and other than Chris Olave, who's doing a nice job, nice young receiver for them. Kamar's been kind of bottled up on game. I would probably go with San Francisco, and this is another prove-it game for them, and their schedule's looking pretty good down the stretch for the Niners. They got Saints, then Miami's going to be an interesting game, Tampa Bay interesting, at Seattle, Washington, at the Raiders, and then they finish with the Cardinals. So a lot of winnable games there. And I think if they get on a roll, as you're saying, Jimmy G looking good, they could possibly win that division.
Yeah, 4 touchdown passes Monday Night Football, and he had 3 to who was it? The tight end, I believe, right?
Yeah,
2.
Kittle was back.
Kittle,
Yes.
yeah, he played well. Real quick with Arizona, Murray's had 2 games this year where he's thrown for over 300. He's missed the last 2. They've got the Chargers, New England, Denver, Tampa, Atlanta, San Francisco. I mean, they're cooked, they're done. But I'm wondering if it's almost buyer's remorse now with the contract that they gave him. And let's not forget, they just turned around and they fired their offensive line coach over an incident that occurred in Mexico. They've got a substantial amount of mess going on right now, and that's including the head coach Cliff Kingsbury, because maybe the room is off the blows with him. I mean, do you think anywhere the Cardinals in that brass and that ownership group is buyer's remorse? Because to me, Murray is not a leader. I think he's a petulant child. I think he's got talent, but I also think he goes rogue too much when plays break down. And all that money they invested in him, who's to say he's even going to be around in the next couple of years? He might want to go play baseball.
Yeah, Q, it's a situation where the Bidwell family, who's the owner of this team, and Steve Keim, who's the general manager, he's on the hot seat because he gave all these contracts out, and he brought Kingsbury over, a guy who was not even winning in college at Texas Tech. And, they had that bright and shiny offense last year going 7-0, but they limp home and at 11-6, losing the first round of the playoffs. And you talk about Kyler Murray. My 14-year-old son always says, Dad, he's playing Call of Duty all the time. That's all he's doing. So he's not dedicated to the game. That's what everybody's saying. And, he's a lot like, Michael Vick early in his career. He's out there making plays, but, you have to go on script sometimes. So it's a situation where the Cardinals are a mess, and they're another team. Did they mortgage enough in the future where they're going to have the draft picks and everything where they can clean this mess up? But you're right. I think I kind of see them limping home, and then a lot of changes coming to Arizona.
You're definitely getting guys making business decisions right now. No doubt. We're not even near the holidays. We're not near Christmas. We're near Thanksgiving, and you'll start to see it. Eagles laying 7 at home. I think that number is going to close around 6. I think you'll start to see some maybe late money, to be quite honest, a little more to drop that number down. I don't think you're going to see it on the Packers side. I mean, if this was a team that was 7-4 and Aaron Rodgers was playing good, then I can understand. All right, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, prime time. Here you go, must-win game. But let's be honest, for all intents and purposes, the Packer season is over. I mean, where do you go from here, right? Because I said this. I thought I was shocked that Brady came back, shocked that Rodgers came back. Brady looks like they might limp into the playoffs, as you mentioned, by virtue of a bad division. And then you look at Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers has been making comments about young wide receivers that can't really run the football. I'm looking at their schedule to close it out. Eagles, Chicago, that's a winnable game. The Rams winnable. But then Miami, Minnesota, and Detroit's no slouch. This team right now, you in essence have to run the table if you're the Green Bay Packers. And I don't think you're going to be able to do that come Sunday night against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, Q, and we talked about every season since 1999. There have been 4 new teams in the playoffs every year. And it's looking like the Raiders, the Steelers, the Packers, the Rams, and the Cardinals. 5 teams that made it last year are not coming back. And you talk about that Packers team that, they tried to fix some holes here and there. And Christian Watson is coming along to receiver position, but I think it may be too much too late. And if they're smart, they'll try to get Jones running and Dylan, the other running back against Eagles suspect run defense, where they bring in Laval Joseph and Notacoms too at the end of the beginning right now to try to help them out. But you're right, that's 7 points, 7.5 points. I would then tend to think the Eagles could cover this because Aaron Rodgers, as you're saying, making a lot of mistakes. Another guy that gets a huge contract. I think he's going to be on the books for like $50 million next season. And how can you clean that up with that big of a contract as an albatross around them? So they won 13 games for like 3 straight years.
Yeah.
But, Ken LaFleur clean this up. But right now, I think it's going to be a long season for the Packers.
You mentioned Hurts when we started the show, playing very well. We can put him in the MVP race. I don't have a problem with it. I think it'll play out over the next couple of weeks. That was an important drive on the road against Indianapolis, against a team that hung in there and had to lead. I mean, you're down 10 on the road. You have to give credit where credit is due. Brown didn't have the best game. They can run the football. We know about their defense, but did Washington kind of set a blueprint? I mean, they turn around, they gash him, and then what does Howie Roseman do? As you just mentioned, you sign Sue, you sign Joseph, who already made an impact on the game in Indianapolis. I mean, where are you at right now with the Philadelphia Eagles? 9-1. You are what your record is. You're 9-1. You're arguably one of the top teams in the NFL, let alone the NFC. But can you see a team in January, i.e. Minnesota or i.e. the 49ers, go into Philly and beat this team? Like, what's the path to victory against the Eagles?
Yeah, Q, a big thing. And, is Jordan Davis, their first round draft pick, a guy that big physical tackle. He was playing nose guard very well. I think he's going to be out even more extended time. He was helping clog up that middle and definitely keep the rush yards down in these games. And we'll see how much Joseph and Sue have left. We saw that Sue kind of with Tampa Bay at the end, he kind of worn down over the last couple of years. So, this Eagles team is a very good team, but they're flawed. They're allowing too much pressure on a quarterback. You'd like to see, almost like I was talking about the Bills, you'd like to see somebody else run the football other than Hurts. And then sometimes Brown, he kind of disappears, and Smith disappears on the outside. They're guys that they're really invested in defensively. Their linebackers have allowed a lot of big plays as well. They're not really stepping up, and their safeties as well. So, their safety, the guy they got from the Saints is doing a good job, but the other safety Epps is kind of suspect. So this is a very big game for them. I know the Packers are going to try to spread them out, move the football down there, but the Eagles, as we talked about, they play Green Bay. Then Tennessee's a big game for them at the Giants, at Chicago, at Dallas, New Orleans, and they finish up against the Giants. So that schedule there, we're going to find out if they're really contenders. And you hate to think, but a couple of years ago, the Steelers were the last undefeated team, would have been about 11, 12-0. And then they kind of limped in the playoffs, lost their first game. So a lot of football to be played.
And coincidentally enough, who beat them outright that year? That was Washington. So
yes.
Washington beat the Eagles. I'm not a Sirianni fan. I think he's a jackass. I mean, I'm listening to make these comments. He just has that that look to him that just rubs me the wrong way. I don't need to hear that guy. I don't.
Yeah, he kind of he thinks he's like a used car salesman. He tells people what they want to hear.
Take it somewhere else.
And results speak for themselves. So they need a good quality win against a quality quarterback and a quality team. They always seem to beat that team that has a second string quarterback or an old quarterback. I want to see them beat a top team. And I always point to that playoff game where Brady and the Bucs just took them apart last year when they went into Tampa. So, I want to see them beat a quality opponent, but they are 9-1.
Exactly. That's it, my friend. They're 9-1. I mean, they're right now. You get that bye. You get one playoff game. You win it. You're essentially hosting the NFC Championship. We mentioned Sirianni with some of his comments, taking shots at her, saying the Colts, and then you got Jeff Saturday. They obviously get to win against a Raiders team that. How do you stick with that head coach? That's another debacle. Now they turn around, they lose to the Eagles. Now they host the Steelers. That line's 2.5. That game doesn't stand out. I'm more curious, your thoughts. Is Jeff Saturday going to be a long-term answer here for the Indianapolis Colts, depending upon how they close out this season? I mean, I'm looking at their schedule right now. They've got, after Pittsburgh, Dallas, tough game, Minnesota, tough game, the Chargers, the Giants, the Texans. I mean, maybe you get another win or two. I mean, how quickly might the room come off the bloom come off the rose with Saturday, Lloyd? I mean, do you believe he's going to be that full-time answer, that long-term answer going forward?
Well, Q, and I don't think so. And, you know, I read an article, somebody's like, this is the new way they're going to pick coaches to going forward. And, you know, you have to have that experience of growing up through the chain of command. You look at a guy like, you know, Sean McDermott, who served his time. He was the Eagles safeties coach and linebacker coach, and he goes to defensive coordinator, and then we know he goes to Carolina, and now he's at Buffalo, very successful. And I just think that's the progression plan that people really should be pointing to. Yes, it was a good, quick win, you know, against a struggling Raiders team for the Colts, but when I look at the Colts, I just see a team kind of in disarray. They just lost their best linebacker and Shaq Leonard, the best defender, and yeah, Matt Ryan, who's kind of limping home at 38 years old, not much tread left on a tire. The offensive line is not very good, and Jonathan Taylor's not running like he used to. So, you know, a team where this is going to be an interesting game because they're playing the Steelers, and TJ Watt is playing in this game, and he can be a game wrecker and get heat on Matt Ryan, get some turnovers. Next thing you know, this game could change. So, you know, I think, to answer your question, Saturday, I think he'll definitely be looked at. They'll see how he does. But, you know, the First Pollard Foundation is looking at this because, you know, there's minority coaches that didn't get an opportunity. So they're going to have to look at everything. And Jim Irsay, he put a bullseye on his back with his comments about the Commanders and their situation. So very interesting times with the Colts, and we'll see how they finish down the stretch.
All right, a couple minutes before I let you get out of here. Again, it's a weekly edition of BYP. We'll post everything throughout the Buzzsprout, also on the YouTube channel. Rich Q and Q Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. Rich Quinones here. You know, everyone's trying to win the Odell sweepstakes. I mean, to be quite honest, look, I mean, would I like to see him back with the Giants? Yeah, because they're void of weapons, but they've got more issues, right? I mean, they've got injuries. They've got issues in the secondary. And who's to say Odell comes in right away and makes that impact, because it's not like he's going to be playing this weekend or maybe not even the next, right? So, you know, if you get him for that stretch run, maybe he makes a couple big plays or you get into playoffs, okay, so be it. But you've got the Cowboys, you've got the Niners, I'm hearing Buffalo, I'm hearing Green Bay, you got the Giants. I mean, when it's all said and done, it might be a big tease to Giant fans if he signs with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think the Giants losing to Detroit or Dallas waxing Minnesota is going to affect his decision either way. I think he already has an idea of where he's going to sign.
Yes, Rich. And you know, he likes the big stage. And I think he feels like he's already done all he could do with the Giants. And it did not end well there. We remember that very clearly. And I know it's a different regime and everything, but I think he's really pinpointing the Dallas Cowboys and talked to some sources out there. And you know, he wants to go there, and you put him with CeeDee Lamb and give him the opportunity. I know Michael Gallup's kind of underachieves this season, but he's probably going to go with the best quarterback he can. So, you know, Dak Prescott's probably there, and maybe, you know, don't forget about the Kansas City Chiefs, because Andy Reid always kind of seems to grab these guys and get them and plug them into the system. We talked about Kadarius Toney. He obviously has that bad hamstring, and he's probably going to be out a couple weeks. So Odell's expected to make his decision right after Thanksgiving, and we'll see where he is. So I'll say right now, Dallas is leader in clubhouse on that one.
All right. And then lastly, I know we hate to talk about it, but coaches on the hot seat, so to speak. I mean, McDaniel, Hackett. I'm trying to think who else. You know, Saturday's an interim coach right now, so we can't really throw him out there. Kingsbury, maybe. In Arizona, I mean, who do you think is going to be that coach when the axe starts to fall and the heads start to roll? I don't know how you keep going with Hackett in Denver. I mean, now you're talking that franchise, that might be a $340 million mistake with Russ. But what coach do you see maybe gets his walking papers when the season ends? Or maybe
Yeah,
before the
Q.
weekends.
It's tough times for these guys, and George Payton is the general manager there with the Broncos, and everybody seems to say, you know what, you picked the wrong guy, and Hackett is a guy, you know, I think Rodgers, quite frankly, made him. You know, he's probably a guy that's a better lieutenant than he is a head coach. Looking, i.e., North Turner and his past. You know, a guy. It's okay to call the plays, but now he's in charge of the whole team, and that team's in total disarray. And I don't think Russell Wilson, who they've invested a lot in, really likes him and his play calling. So I definitely think that Hackett is a guy with a bullseye, and which is surprising because most coaches get more than one season. So we'll have to see if he gets it done. McDaniels, I think the Raiders just have too much money tied up in him to get rid of him after one season. And then we talked about Kingsbury earlier. I just think, these college coaches come in, and the NFL is hard work, and you have to put in the work day in, day out. We saw that Matt Rule. They just can't make that transition from a big-time college coach to the NFL. So I think Kingsbury is definitely on chopping block as well as Hackett.
All right, so your week 11 game ball, and then your lackey game ball, tight end Travis Kelce, incredible, right? What was it? 6 receptions, 10 targets, 115, a couple touchdowns, plus the game winner. I mean, is he the best tight end right now in the NFL?
He's the best one going, and you got Pitts, who just got hurt, and he's not playing. Kittle's obviously trying to pick it back up, but he's known more for his blocking now. And Kelce is just unguardable. I know Derwin James is a guy that is one of the better safeties in the league, and you just made him look silly, and Patrick Mahomes believes in him. He'll throw in those 50-50 balls, and he just made a lot of big plays. Those 3 touchdowns were huge.
So you're lackey, you're crushing the special teams coach of the Jets, and rightfully so, in the punter, but I'll do you one better. How about Robert Saleh not really entrusting his quarterback to try to make a play late? I mean, to me, that was basically, we're trying to get in overtime. We're not trying to win the game.
Yeah, Q, it falls on all of them. And
yeah.
Brant Boyer is his special teams coach, and Saleh should have told him, he's like, don't have the punter kick that ball anywhere near him. It made me think of that Giants game.
Come on, man.
I didn't want to bring it up, but he kicked it to D-Jack, and he took it to the house, and that was like the only way the Patriots are going to win that game, because I watched the majority of it. Mac Jones was not doing anything offensively. It's quarterback position, and the Jets, that's where Jets fans are going to say, oh, the Jets are still the Jets, but they're 6-4 right now, and they seem to change a lot of things, and hopefully they can learn from that mistake, but it definitely was not a good look.
Yeah, and that game against the Giants, by the way, the Giants had the big lead, and I think it was either Umanura or I think it was OC on one play. I don't know if it was Tuck, but one of them basically got a little too greedy on a 3rd down play. Vic winds up hitting Selleck for the long touchdown to turn the tide. That punt kind of bounced a little bit as well, that awkward bounce. I still think there was a clip in a back, and I'll say the same thing when Westbrook returned it in the old Giant Stadium. Ike Reese totally got away with a clip in the back. So I don't know what it is with New York teams and punts, but I would agree to you on that one. All right, so listen, I know we got to wrap it up. So glad that we're kickstarting this back up. We got a lot of stuff to dive into. We're still got a lot of football to talk about, got a lot of bets, got a lot of odds. Everyone wants to follow Lloyd on Twitter at Lloyd Vance. Check him out on Twitter, Facebook as well. Brother, I appreciate it, man. I look forward to doing this a couple times during the week and during the month, and talking a lot of football like old times with you.
All right, Q, whenever you need me, and thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. There you have it. So that's our guy, Lloyd Vance, does an excellent job. And, we were talking about the Jets and their issues. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I was a little surprised that Wilson made those types of comments. I mean, I think, hey, man, you threw for 77 yards. You might want to turn around and humble yourself a little more. That defense is really playing like a lights out defense. Their defense right now, that is a Super Bowl ready, Super Bowl caliber defense. We're seeing it in the NFC with the San Francisco 49ers. So to Lloyd's point, and what we've kind of conveyed throughout the show, is that, sometimes you do have to set the young man down. It'll be interesting to see the decision that Saleh makes going forward, but that's a game they had to have, and now the Pats have won 14 straight over the Jets. As far as these games during Thanksgiving, we already told you, I do think the Giants will figure out a way to cover that number. probably going to have to run the ball. They're going to stack the box. I think they're going to stack the box big time. So, Saquon's going to have his work cut out for him. Maybe get him in the backfield. You get some wheel routes with him and Breida. Let Jones try to sling it. Listen, target Kenny Galladay, right? Guy's making $72 million. Target him. Slayton, target these guys. And you basically got to go and you got to die with your boots on. I like Minnesota, and I also like Detroit to cover the number against Buffalo. So that's going to do it for a Wednesday edition of BYP. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget, we'll be recording 27 and Q later in the week with the big man Brandon Jacobs. Jonathan Marshall is going to join me later on in the week with another edition of BYP. We'll go through the NBA betting slate as well. Big game tonight, 76ers and the Nets. No Embiid. He'll miss 2 with the foot injury. Ben Simmons return to Philadelphia. So we'll talk a little more about this. On Thursday's show, we'll do about a 20-25 minute feature on Thanksgiving, maybe a little instant reaction to the games. But as always, we appreciate you guys keeping us locked in. Don't forget, check us out on social media at RichQ on Q. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate it. Everyone have a good Sports Wednesday, and we'll talk to you soon.